truly, I tell myself I don't have the time. I'm doing other things. I'm working. I don't think I would have the dedication that it takes. Going to the gym is a choice. And you guys, I mean, I'm glad that you do, but it's also like not my thing.
Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we are going to be talking about a video that was sent to me by one of you guys. So again, I always appreciate it. If there's ever something that you think would be worth talking about, if you want to send it to me on Instagram, TikTok, or tag me or anything like that, I always really appreciate it. It helps me make better videos because I'm able to find stuff. But this video was sent to me by one of you guys. This is actually part of a longer video, which is this one right here, which is called Is Being Overweight a Choice? Gym-Goers versus Body Acceptance by this channel Counterpoint. Basically, it's very similar to, if you remember, Jubilee used to do videos like this, and maybe they still do, but from what I've been able to see in this video, it seems like there's a lot better conversations that are going on. Instead, I think Jubilee maybe started doing videos like that, but then they've kind of turned into more just how extreme can we go? How over the top can we be? And it seems like from what I've seen in this video that I've watched, this is a little bit more nuanced and people are agreeing with each other a little bit more instead of just completely arguing. But I wanted to talk about this video right here because it's basically just the first part of this video. So this video is an hour long, so we're not going to be doing the whole thing. Maybe if, you know, this video ends up doing well and people enjoy it, maybe I'll talk about the other questions that they ask. But I feel like this first question I think is really, really interesting. The way that people answer these questions are very, very interesting, and the conversations that are had are really genuine, it seems like, at least to me. And so I just wanted to throw my hat in the ring and kind of act like I was there as well, even though I wasn't invited. But that's okay. So let's go ahead and check out this video.
Being fat or skinny is a choice. We'll start by having people that agree come up now.
Honestly, I am not entirely sure if I would go up as far as like through the question being fat or skinny is a choice, because it's one of the things that it's nuanced. I think that you can always, especially with questions like this, you can always be like, well, this person doesn't have a choice because they have XYZ thing going on and blah, 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 right? Like there's always a way to make someone that it wouldn't, you know, relate to and it wouldn't work for. But I think in general, that is something that I agree with. Does that mean that I think that it's easy or that anyone that is struggling with their weight is just not making the right choices? No, I think it's more nuanced than that. So I think I would probably go and sit down, but then, you know, when we're talking, try and articulate that in a way that made a little bit more sense. That's, you know, more than just, yes, I agree 100%. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, right?
So I was a wrestler my whole life, constantly dieting my whole entire life. I mean, at this point now, I'm not wrestling anymore, so I don't have to worry about it as much. But I think it just comes down to the fact of it's just a calorie deficit. You want to consume less than what you're burning. Some people might have it easier. I'm not saying that. You know, like some people might find it harder to lose weight. Some people might find it easier.
And your experience with the wrestling thing.
I think that that's interesting, right? Because I've never been a wrestler, but I had friends in high school that were wrestlers. I had one of my favorite teachers, actually was his TA when I was a senior in high school, and he was teaching, I think, 11th grade. He was the nicest guy. He's genuinely, I saw him at the store a few years ago and we were talking and stuff. He's a super cool guy. But he was a wrestling coach as well, and they would talk about like how intense the weight cuts would be and how over the top they are. So I can understand this guy's perspective of understanding and like being able, seeing himself manipulate his weight and his body at a young age in high school. Now there's arguments, and I think they're very fair, of whether or not that's a good thing. I think that especially in high school, the way that you know, kids are manipulating and coaches are encouraging kids to manipulate their weight can a lot of times be very, very unhealthy. And so, you know, but I could at least understand where he's coming from because he himself has done it himself, right? He has manipulated that weight and saw that I was eating less and probably, you know, sitting in a sauna, sweating a ton, seeing the water weight go down. And so I'm able to see for myself that by doing those things, I was able to manipulate my weight up and down as a child, right? So.
Did you always lose weight when you went into the calorie deficit, or was it different each time?
100%. And it might have been, you know, a little too extreme to where it got to the point where it might have been a little unhealthy.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
But, you know, at the end of the day, I was losing weight, and it could have been because I had a better metabolism than some people. I could have had an easier route, but at the same time, I mean, anybody can lose weight if you just put your mind to it.
Yeah, and with metabolism, that's I've talked about this a million times, and I'm sure most of you guys understand this, but I think metabolism a lot of times for most people that have, that don't have extenuating circumstances that are going to make this more difficult, but most people, your metabolism is not some crazy number that just kind of is placed upon you when you're born, that you have a fast metabolism and you have a slow metabolism. It is an aggregate of all the things that are kind of going on in your life, your height, your weight, the amount of activity that you have, all of these things, your gender, and all of that stuff, or your sex, all of that stuff goes into your metabolism and how that works. It's not like it's just some random thing that some people have a higher one and some people don't, right? It's much more quantifiable than that. And so whenever people kind of talk about that, I feel like it's important to make sure people understand that. And it's not because I'm trying to be like, oh, if you say that, you're stupid. It's just understanding that you have control and that you can understand what your TDEE is, right? Your metabolism and how many calories you're burning in a day, and understanding that you can figure that out, I think gives you more chances to be successful, because you're not just like, well, I don't know what my metabolism is. I don't know what my TDE is. There's just nothing I can do. My body's crazy, right? And this is coming from someone that when I was at my heaviest, I used to joke around all the time saying, I had a shirt that said "Born to be Big" on it. I used to joke, I don't have a metabolism. My metabolism is broken. Even if I look at a donut, I gain 5 pounds. It's not fair. I go to McDonald's with my friends and we're eating the same foods and I'm gaining a ton of weight. Now I'm able to look back and I realize I was eating maybe 3 times the amount as my friends. And then on top of it, that would be the only thing they ate in the day. And I'm still eating another 2 full meals, right? And so the reason I'm just saying this is because I think a lot of times people will use metabolism as like, there's nothing I can do. I just have a bad metabolism and that's it, right? And I just, I don't want people to feel helpless.
Okay, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely a choice. Excluding all the rarities, thyroid conditions, things like that come up. In general, I definitely think that it's everyone's personal choice. Some people do have it harder. I myself, I have a really hard time gaining weight. Super easy for me to kind of drop weight, slim down. But if you're trying to pack on muscle, I feel like I'm eating nonstop constantly.
Yeah, I mean, how much are you eating per day? Is it a lot?
I don't count my calories. I just have a rule: if my stomach doesn't feel full, I have to eat.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, putting on genuine weight, it's kind of what I call it. Obviously, like just eating and not really worrying about it is relatively easy. But if you're trying to put on muscle, it is difficult, right? And I've talked about it before versus losing weight versus gaining weight and like gaining muscle. It takes more effort, in my opinion, to gain genuine muscle, right? Because it means that you have to be in a surplus, but not too much of a surplus, and you have to be working out and doing all of the other things that go along with it. When it comes to losing weight, you just have to make sure you're in a deficit. Obviously, there are tons of nuances, but from my own experience, it's been more, I don't want to say difficult, but it's taken more effort to put on muscle than it was to lose weight. And I think part of it too is that, losing weight is a finite thing. You eventually are going to get to a point where you're not losing weight anymore, right? And then you have to make that decision to, okay, what am I going to do here? Am I going to maintain? Am I going to try and add muscle? Am I going to try and do other things? Like that's a whole nother conversation that people really struggle with is everyone knows they want to lose weight, but then they don't know what they want to do once they lose the weight. And that's, I think that is the question and the conversation that is never talked about that frustrates me, because it's just losing weight. And then people lose weight and then they're like, what am I supposed to do now? Where is the help? Where's the content for me? And it just doesn't really exist. And I feel like a lot of people end up getting lost. Sorry, I'm getting on a tangent here, so let's continue.
Fair. And how about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with the majority of what you've said, that you can change your diet and really control what your weight does. I've watched it happen with my own body over the course of my life. I shared my office with a nutritionist for a year and listened to him talk about things. And, it is very true. You can control that. And there are different genetic effects that can have a play on things, or different conditions that people might have, like you mentioned. But I think we have to also mention the way that our food system is structured right now. Our food system is designed to keep people unhealthy and to keep people fat and overweight and to try and make people sick and put them into the medical system where then they can fall into the insurance system. We have a system that is stacked against people being healthy. If you look at what people looked like with what they were eating when they ate whole foods, 7,500 years ago, even maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that talking about, the ways, sorry, I'm dealing with a little bit of a sore throat, so that's why I'm making so many noises, but dealing with seeing how the food industry has changed over the years, especially, if you think about World War II, that's kind of when it seems like a lot of people say a lot of stuff changed. I feel like a big part of that, and I'm not trying to get into this, but, a big part of that is, capitalism. It's these companies that are making a ton of money, and the way that they can make more money is by making their foods more palatable, more, as cheap as they can make it, right? Which in turn means the unhealthy food, and you see it when you go into the grocery store for a lot of people, right? There are ways to combat it. I think that sometimes people will see the organic, and this is why I get so frustrated about organic and all of these other buzzwords, because a lot of times it raises the prices, and then people see all the organic, gluten-free, non-GMO foods are so much more expensive, and the Oreos and other things and Chips Ahoy or whatever are way cheaper. But I think that there's ways that you can get healthy food that's cheap. But regardless, these companies, they market a ton. They have a ton of money. It's in your face all the time. It is push to you, especially if you grew up as someone like I did that had access to, very unhealthy foods. My parents weren't the most knowledgeable when it came to nutrition. It just became, that's what I wanted all the time. Every time I was hungry, that's what I wanted. I wanted soda. If I was thirsty, I didn't drink water ever. Soda was what I drank every day. All the time. You know what I mean? It just becomes, you just become, addicted to it, or you become accustomed to it. And so trying to wean yourself off of that is incredibly difficult. And so, I do feel that, I don't like to, big food, but these companies that have tons of money, they are intentionally doing that not because I don't even think, and maybe I'm wrong here, I don't even think that it's these companies are we want to make everyone fat and terrible. It's just, we want to make as much money as possible. And the more food that they eat from us means the more money that we get from them, right? But again, my opinion, right?
Unless, I think it really started after World War II when they learned how to prepackage foods with a bunch of preservatives to get at the front lines. And that changed the way that our processing of foods was done. And I think since that point, it's become the commoditization of the American people. We're essentially cattle being farmed for all of these different services to compound and rake us for money.
Okay, and I think that's a good time to bring in the rest of us.
I think that there's, like you were saying, there's so many disadvantages and ways of privilege that some people don't have access to, like transportation, healthy foods. If they struggle with their mental health or physical health for any reason, they can't get access to the same kinds of foods to stay healthy or to stay thinner. Just for medical conditions, personally, I have POTS, which makes it hard for me to exercise, and also I need a lot of salt. And when I am thinner, it's harder for me to stay hydrated, so I pass out then. But all of those reasons, it's hard for me to believe that it is a choice.
Okay, can you kind of explain what POTS is?
Yeah, POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And what that means is when your heart rate rises because your blood pools, and so then you pass out. But it's really important to stay super hydrated and have salt in your system to regulate your blood pressure.
I also have
Yeah, so that's definitely something that would make it significantly more difficult, right, than someone that wouldn't have that. But again, I think with anything, if you're ever, sadly have a condition that makes it a little bit more difficult, I think it's important to do your best to try and work with it instead of tell yourself, I can't do it because of this, because I think that almost always you can find someone online or just someone in general that has a similar condition that is making the best of it. And so I do think, again, when we're talking about a choice, you still have a choice to do as much as you can with the position that you're in. And I'm not saying that it's fair. You look at the starting line, some people are starting here, some people are starting way over here. Is it fair that they're starting in front of you? No. But does that mean that you should just be well, I'm not going to do the race. I'm not going to try. I'm just going to walk backwards, right? And so I think that's, again, not saying that it's fair, but it still comes down to you make the choice, right? It's important to never feel like there's nothing you can do, because once you feel that way, there is nothing you can do because you're not going to do anything about it, right?
A medical condition called PCOS, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it makes it difficult to lose weight as well. I'm not blaming me being a bigger gal over that by any means. Also, one thing I cannot control is how tall I am. I'm really short, and that's also a part of this body acceptance thing. It's like, that is something that I can change with only one thing, and that's wearing heels. And it's not the most ideal.
It's definitely, that's fair. Like, if you're a very short, petite woman, like, the amount of calories that you can have in a day is going to be significantly different than, this dude that's right to her right? He seems like a much taller guy. He's just going to be able to have more calories, which in turn is going to make it quote unquote easier, right? He's going to have more leeway, just like I am. I weigh 215 pounds ish, and I'm 6'7" or 5'8". It just depends on who you ask. But, I'm able to have a little bit more calories than someone that would be shorter than me and maybe doesn't have as much muscle, right? So those are things that are a little bit out of your control. When it comes to muscle, you obviously can build it, which I feel that I've done over, a decade, which has made it a little bit more, quote unquote, easier for me to maintain my weight. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Way to live, but like, this is the body that I was born in, and the body that I'm so accepting of other people's bodies, but it's like accepting my own without changing so much about it. It's really difficult.
I think it all comes down to whether or not we have free will. In today's society, we don't have access to knowledge.
Okay, well, I disagree. I disagree with that. I think I'm assuming maybe she meant something different, because we definitely have access to knowledge. I think the problem is we have access to too much knowledge, and it becomes, paralysis by analysis. There's so many, you can look anywhere online and they could be like, only eat meat to lose weight. Don't eat any meat to lose weight. You should eat only fat to lose weight. You shouldn't ever have any fat if you want to lose weight. You should do this. You shouldn't work out. You should work out. You should work out 6 days a week. You should only work out 3. There is so much information that it can become just so over the top. And like, my advice for anyone is just be wary if someone says they have the secret answer that no one wants to tell you about. It doesn't exist, right? Like, the answer is work hard over a long period of time. That's the answer, right? If you want to be healthy, if you want to lose weight, if you want to, the answer is do the things that are difficult and continue doing those things. I have never found any sort of secret being able to keep this weight off for the amount of time that I have, right? I think I've shown this before, right? I didn't go from here to here because I found some secret. It was just hard work, working hard, and eating right, and making mistakes, but again, being able to see that I don't want to be here anymore. I want to try and get to here. And the way that I do that is by making choices that this person over here would make, not choices that he would make, right? And it's just about making those decisions over time, compounding, building. And that's the way to do it, in my opinion. And if anyone says they have a secret for you, just be wary. That's all I got to say.
And so a lot of us don't realize the foods that we're eating is bad. Whether or not you are eating healthy or you're eating like ramen noodles every day, we truly don't know what's in our foods. And so unless you're calorie counting and, owning up to what you're doing, unless you have that ability to break through that barrier of this is me, which a lot of people don't, especially in poverty. Like, we don't have access to therapy, stuff like that. Like, trauma can make a huge barrier between self-awareness and blaming the world. And so a lot of people just blame the world and they can't accept accountability, which could literally be impossible for them.
If I have somebody that I have to rely on to buy all my food and supplies, then at that point, you don't really have a choice. It's not like an 8-year-old can petition for emancipation. I mean,
that's a fantastic point. It really, that's super important. And that's why I do think that knowledge and trying to help people that are in positions of poverty. Like, you know, my parents were when I was a kid. There was, I just think about the foods that we ate now, looking back on what I know now. And again, I mean this with the utmost respect to my mom, because she was really who raised me for the most part. She just didn't know. So you don't know what you don't know. But like, I think about the meals that we ate growing up, and I'm like, damn, that's like, if I ever have a kid, that's not the way that I would do things. Right. And it's not because I think my mom's a bad mom. I think she was doing the best that she could. But again, it's about those, I didn't have a choice. And so, you know, it was more difficult. But again, once you do get older, like I did, once I got older, I was like, okay, well, I do have a choice now, and I can't blame anyone other than myself. And so if I want to make a change, I have to make that change, which I was thankfully able to do.
And he's kind of stuck under the guidance and values of his parents.
Yeah, that's true.
As an adult, I guess it's different, but yeah, definitely as young children and even the teenagers, it's not as much of a choice.
What else do you think makes it not a choice for them?
Gosh, I think of like when I'm like in front of really good food, and just being like a foodie in general, like trying different restaurants. Food is how I bond with people too. Like, it's in our society. You go to a restaurant, you eat as much food until you're so stuffed you can't eat anymore.
So not everyone does that. I think that's a very, I don't want to say American, because I'm sure there's other cultures that are kind of similar. But I think that like feeling like, I think a lot of times people will have a expectation that like, this is how I enjoy my time with others by doing that, right? Eating so much that I can barely sit, right? I can barely stand up. I kind of think about like, I remember when growing up, we would have huge Thanksgivings. Like we would have like 30 people over. It was crazy. It was so much fun, man. I think about those memories so fondly. But like, I just remember I was so excited because, again, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have as many plates as I possibly could. My family was a dessert family, so we had like tons of different types of pies and different just things like that. And so I would just be so excited to have maybe 2 plates of food and then just have as much dessert as I possibly could. Like, that's the way that I looked forward to those encounters with my family, those holidays. And now I look forward to Thanksgiving. But it's not because I want to eat as much food. It's like, I'm excited to spend time with my family. And yes, I'll probably eat a little bit more than I normally would, but I'm not going to use this holiday as a way to gorge myself to the point of feeling unhealthy, like I can't move, right? Because not even because I'm like, oh, I'm just so healthy, I can't do that. I don't like that feeling. And so I avoid that feeling, regardless of if it's Thanksgiving or just another Friday night, right?
And that is, how I eat almost every day, and it feels like I don't have the free will anymore. It freaking controls me. And to get up and have that same energy to go to the gym is really hard. Where I'm like,
well, yeah, just because something's hard though doesn't mean that it's not possible, right?
The easy thing is to do the, eating until I can't no more. And maybe that does make it a choice in a way, but I feel like I don't have the free will to make that choice.
That makes sense. Do you think a lot more people are feeling that like that too?
100%. Like, it's something that I can control. If I'm gonna choose a salad, you bet I'm gonna put a bunch of dressing on it to make it taste better. Or the burger just looks so good, like here, I absolutely am going to eat that compared to the salad. I don't feel like I have control over it, that it does not feel like a choice. It does also feel good. Like, the endorphins hit me and I'm just like freaking dopamine high. I guess I could be addicted to crack. So if my food is my addiction, which it is, I've wrote like long notes in my phone about how bad my food addiction is. Like, it doesn't feel like a choice.
So I understand and I empathize with that position. And I think the best thing that I could say to someone that's feeling that way is to try and reframe the idea of, well, I enjoy doing this, and so that's what I want to do. Again, everything is easier said than done. I understand that. But try and reframe those hard choices as, this is what I want in the future. This is the person that I want to be. And these are the choices that I need to make. And try and reframe it and like, I am happy that I made the hard decision to not gorge myself to where I can barely move on this meal, because I will be getting closer to that person. And then as far as working out, it doesn't have to be like, this is so important. You don't have to go to the gym and, you know, do the same sort of workout that I would do now after working out for over a decade, right? I wouldn't expect that for, you know, if I'm going to take someone off the street or, you know, someone that doesn't work out and be like, we're going to do my whole workout with me. That would be a terrible idea. I remember I did that with one of my stepbrothers. I had only been working out for a few years, and he was like, I want to work out with you. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, we'll just do one of my workouts. And he ended up going to the bathroom and having to excrete things from his mouth, right? And I was just like, okay, so that was too much, right? But I just didn't realize because I had been doing it for so long. And so it's important to understand that like you don't have to be doing, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just good enough. Just do something. Start somewhere. And if you want to go to the gym and you want to start working out, you don't have to be like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to have a split and I'm going to be going 6 days a week. Just be like, I'm going to go twice a week and spend 20 minutes on an elliptical or whatever cardio equipment you might want to do. You know, I would encourage everyone to lift if you can, but I understand that that's very scary. So even just starting the routine of going to the gym and just doing something is better than doing nothing. And don't let the idea of, well, I'm not doing enough stop you from even doing anything, right? I think that's very important.
But there's no place to go, like food rehab, right? It's not.
I mean, there is, but I don't think it's completely necessary for most people. But I mean, if you feel that you really need that, I mean, there are places like that do exist.
Treated the same. It's just you're fat and that's your choice. Get up, you lazy thing.
It's
Terrible.
the easiest coping mechanism.
Right.
You know, like I remember having a bad day, like almost weekly. The thing was I would go when it was a bad day and I would hit a Taco John's and grab, you know, a big giant grilled stuffed burrito and the pound of potato Olays, a bunch of extra seasoning, you know, because that was like okay, you know, like the same feeling people describe of like having the cigarette when they've been craving it kind of thing, of like just that release of like, okay, it just set that calm across your whole body kind of thing.
I completely understand that. And I truly do believe that it is possible to change that outlet to working out or something that's healthy. I remember this was the only time I ever got fired from a job. I've told this story before on the channel. I was working at a shooting range and I went into work completely unbeknownst to me. I had no idea there was even any problems. Apparently this manager, the person that kind of ran the shooting range, was very particular and he would just get rid of people if he felt like they weren't the perfect fit. I was very young too. I was probably like 21, 20 or something like that. And I went into work, ready to work. And then all of a sudden he brings me into the office, says, you're fired. Here's your paycheck. You have to leave. And I just remember being like distraught. I could not believe that I had gotten fired. I never experienced that. That was the only time that's ever happened to me. And I just remember being lost, feeling like, what did I do wrong? Obviously I felt very like I did something wrong. It's a problem with me. I felt terrible about it. And I remember I went home, changed, and just went to the gym. And I had this workout that, I mean, I felt pretty numb, but I just remember like that was my outlet. And it is possible to get there, right? It just takes time and it takes effort. But I do believe that you can go from a place where your outlet is eating and it can switch. I don't know exactly how that happens. I'm not, an expert on that, but I truly believe that has happened to me, like beyond the shadow of a doubt. And so as someone that I don't think that there's anything inherently special about me, I'm not some sort of like, special case. I do believe that it's possible. And I just feel like so many people feel that, oh, that'll never be me. That'll never be me. I understand that feeling, but I felt that way too. And I was able to change it.
Can I ask you three a question that disagreed?
Yeah.
Do you guys find that sometimes it's a lack of discipline more so than a choice, which can sometimes enable you into making further bad choices? I find myself with those similar struggles on things outside of the gym.
This guy seems like honestly, everyone seems pretty nice, but like he seems like he has a pretty good head and shoulders. I haven't watched the rest of the video, so I don't know, his takes on every single thing. But from what I've seen, this guy right here seems like a pretty solid, solid head on his shoulders.
Yeah, how do you guys feel about that?
There's a fine line between discipline and free will, and it all just comes down onto your neural pathways and whether or not you have the capability to rewire your brain to be like, okay, I can eat this. You know, you can have the Taco Bell, but you have to balance it out with something. Too much of anything is an addiction. If you're constantly eating healthy food, once you get a bite of, you know, Thanksgiving turkey, you're going to overindulge. And I've experienced
I don't know if turkey is the thing that I overindulge with on Thanksgiving, but I understand the sentiment.
that myself.
Specifically with going to the gym, like that is a discipline that I highly admire in people like you.
So hearing that, I just hope that she understands that she can get there. And I believe that without a shadow of a doubt. I believe that at the core of my being, that if you genuinely admire that and that's something that you want, you can do it. It just is going to suck at for the first little bit. But eventually you will get to a point where it doesn't suck as much. And then you get to a point where you're like, I enjoy doing this and I feel weird not doing it.
Truly, I tell myself I don't have the time. I'm doing other things. I'm working. I really don't. I don't think I would have the dedication that it takes. Going to the gym is a choice. And you guys, I mean, I'm glad that you do, but it's also like not my thing. I've tried it before, and I don't have the discipline to stay consistent with it. So I think that's a good point, Gabe.
Life where
And honestly, I think that. Sorry, I think I skipped ahead a little bit. I think I appreciate her honesty because that's not easy to do. And so, you know, whether or not I agree or disagree with her, like being honest about that, you know, especially with how you know people on the internet are going to be, I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think for me it comes down to discipline. You know, I've been through the points in time in my life where, you know, I've been what you would consider 1% as far as physical condition. And I know that at this point, it is a discipline thing. Last year, my wife and I did a 90-day challenge, and I lost 50 pounds in 90 days. So I know if I make the choice to do the things, good things happen.
But again, right, and this is why I'm not a fan of those 90-day challenges, is that a lot of times they don't, and I'm sure you guys know this, but they don't encourage healthy habits. They just encourage how much can you lose, right, in this specific amount of time. And then a lot of times people revert to really unhealthy things, right?
You know, so for me, I believe it is a discipline thing, but that it can very well be my privilege. It's not, you know, I have the means to be able to do it if I want to or choose not to. And like you said, food is a social thing for me. I have, you know, just today I had an all-you-can-eat buffet after a work event. I have at least 3 work meals every single week that are all-you-can-eat buffets, you know, because that's our culture. You know, like I'm constantly working with people. It's just part of my job to ensuring other people having meals and enjoying themselves. And food is also like my art form. Like I have a commercial kitchen in my home because I just love to experiment with food, you know, like making all kinds of homemade things. You know, the pandemic was an awesome time because we got to make so many homemade things, you know. I just love
This guy, I also really like this guy as well. It's so interesting. And I think the one thing that I really liked about this video when I first saw it was just how it seems like these things that you feel like, these people that you feel are going to be so opposite, which again, like if you were to try and find the more extreme people of the body acceptance and the more extreme people of the gym kind of people, they're going to be super, super, super as different as you can be, right? But the reality is that there are a lot of people that are on the body acceptance place that are not those people, are not super extreme. And the same thing with people that are gym goers. I would put myself in that position, right? And I don't feel like I'm over the top and like, you're just fat, just work out, you piece of crap, right? Like I'm not like that. And there are plenty of other people that are like that, right? And I think that being able to find people that, while they might not agree completely, there's a lot more overlap than, you know, the internet would maybe make you think there would be.
to deal with food. And so I've always had a problem with weight because, yeah.
I just think back to like access and like how you were talking about how sometimes there are folks that are privileged and can access those kinds of things. But for me and how I grew up, I know that like we didn't always have a ride to the food pantry, and even if we did, the food pantry doesn't offer nutritious food a lot of the times. Also, not only transportation, there is that mental block. There's also physical blocks if you are differently abled and not able to make it to the gym or make it to the store. All of those things are really prevalent in the back of my mind because I've experienced a lot of those things. And so I think it's really important for me at least to remember where I come from, and then also the privilege I have today to make more choices than I ever could.
I totally get the act.
Yeah, and like I understand, like I can only imagine being in her position right here, right, where you know, it seems that she has some, you know, disabilities and things that make it more difficult, and that's why I said, like, you don't it doesn't have to be perfect, but just understand that there are choices that you can make, and just understand that regardless of the position that you're in, you can still make the best choice for yourself in that moment, and not think to yourself, well, I'm a lost cause, why even try? That's what I want people to avoid, you know, that kind of thought. Well, I'm a lost cause, why even try anything? It's really important to get away from that, in my opinion, because once you start thinking that way, you just start to think that way about everything. And then, you know, you end up just feeling kind of pointless and lost in the world, you know, not to get too over the top, right? But like, that's dangerous. You don't want to feel that way.
Because it seems like healthy food is the most expensive anytime you go to the grocery store. And so, I mean, I totally understand the access point. I just want to go back. I mentioned before, I wrestled my whole life. I was not a healthy eater. I mean, try telling a 13-year-old he can't have, you know, a cookie tonight or anything like that. And so, I mean, when I was going to high school too, for lunch, I was eating an Uncrustable, and I'd always get like a chocolate chip cookie. And so, I mean, it's possible. Like I said before, as long as, you know, you're burning more calories than you consume, you're going to lose weight. So at the end of the day, I always think it's a choice. And it's not even like going to the gym. I mean, if you consume a lot of calories during the day, and you're like, man, I'm stuffed, I need to go burn a couple calories, you could just go for a walk. I mean, go outside, go for a run, and you would lose weight.
Yeah, I think, like, you know, a lot of times we get bogged down in the, you know, the kind of comparisons about, oh, healthy food is this, blah, 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 right? But at the end of the day, right, if you're really focused on weight loss, calories in versus calories out for the vast majority of people is how you make that happen. But again, like, obviously, like, you know, he's talking about eating cookies and stuff like that, but it is definitely more difficult to be in a deficit and your diet consists mainly of those types of foods, right? Cookies, and especially things that are highly palatable. And then on top of that, if you are someone that struggles a little bit more with those hyper palatable foods, and you struggle with being able to say no and turn it off, right? Like, we've heard so much talk about like food noise with the GLP-1s and stuff like that. And, you know, if you're someone that doesn't really have that, and you're just like, yeah, you're not really thinking about food, it's very different than someone that they wake up and like their first thought is, what am I going to have for breakfast? And then all they're thinking about until lunch is, what am I going to have for lunch? And then all they're thinking about until dinner is, what I'm going to have for dinner, right? So it's definitely more difficult, but I understand the point that he's trying to make. And, you know, regardless of if you're eating quote unquote healthy or unhealthy foods, as long as you're in a deficit, weight loss will happen. But then there's, you know, more to that conversation, because just because you're losing weight doesn't necessarily mean that what you're doing is healthy. And like, yeah, you're in a deficit, but if you're in a deficit eating McDonald's and cookies, you know, yeah, it's probably not very healthy.
And so, I mean, I'm still on the side where I believe it's a choice.
Again, barring medical conditions, every nutritionist I've ever spoken with has always said it really is as simple as how it's being put. I don't say that to cast in negativity, but more so to just spread like, hey, it is possible, and I don't want to enable anybody's mind to think that it can't be done. More as a real positivity thing, like you absolutely can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. Like, just because something is simple, that doesn't mean that it's easy, but it does mean that it's possible, right?
I'll accept that it's certainly harder for some folks, but possible.
Kind of going back to some of the talk about children and stuff earlier, we've made a really conscious decision to make sure that our children are a lot more educated about food, and, you know, they understand right now, like, hey, what you're eating, it's not really healthy. And so they are making the conscious choice, and they understand that right now at their age, their metabolism is allowing them to get away with the things that they're doing. We've also seen one of our children very much struggle with their own body acceptance a lot, and have a hard time with that, with a lot of bullying and issues and stuff. And so watching them go through that, and, you know, we've helped educate them, and they've helped improve themselves in ways that they wanted to. I feel a lot more empowered now with everything I have access to. You know, speaking to what you said about knowledge earlier, you know, like I was a kid in, I was born in '85, so a lot of the stuff coming out back then was new. A lot of these packaged foods were, you know, just coming out with a lot of the newest, fanciest oils and all the other nonsense that they have in them now. And so, you know, I feel like as a parent now, we do have that choice a lot more to actually educate ourselves if we want to. But the problem is there's not a good way to determine if the data is actually factual nowadays. You can go out there and find absolutely contradictory sources
Yep.
from fully highly credentialed, PhD level, completely contradicting in the nutrition space.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It's hard. It's hard.
And so it's really difficult to put the onus on people again when you have a system that is designed to confuse and designed to try and keep people addicted at the end of the day. It's like so many of our other vice systems, food has become another vice system in our country.
So as someone I just graduated in 23 of high school, and as someone who's worked in elementary schools, I see how obesity has overtaken the system. When I was in elementary school, we did not have snack time. They have snack time. Multiple times a day, they get to bring their own snacks. And so I see the way that these kids treat each other, and I see the way that they look at food. Being in school too, it's such a structured system. And so when you get the ability to take a break, you overindulge. And so that's just the way our system in America, in the United States, is set up and how it's been set up since the schools were established. And I find it hard to say that we have free will to be skinny or be fat, because a lot of parents don't know how to parent their children due to the lack of knowledge, and they choose to shut them up with food.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point. I think that, the overabundance of, like I said, highly palatable foods has made it significantly more difficult, but I do believe that it is still possible. I think it's, again, if you are in a position where you don't have as much money, that always is going to make it more difficult. Fully, completely agree with that. But yeah, that's the full, video, at least of this kind of section. There's a couple other sections that they did, so maybe we'll do a video on that. Unless this video gets copyright claimed, then it is what it is. But yeah, I just thought that it was a very interesting conversation of people that disagreed with each other, but were still pretty respectful, and I feel like they were able to have a pretty good conversation. I would love to know what you think down in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.